Hey guys, and welcome back to Access Blockbusters, and today we're going to be reviewing the first 3 episodes of She-Hulk Attorney at Law. Now, I want to give a few disclaimers up front so you guys know what this video is. This is going to be a more podcast style of review, so I won't be making many cuts, if any at all, and that's just because I want to talk to you guys about She-Hulk, and the reason also that I wanted to put this video out, I believe it's going to be coming out Friday or Saturday of this week, is that I've been away for a little bit. I've been traveling, and so I haven't been able to really access YouTube that much, and that's been, it's been a good break for me to just kind of get away from the internet and all that sort of stuff. But I have watched the first 3 episodes of She-Hulk. I just finished episode 3, and I wanted to get my thoughts out now that I'm back about the first 3 episodes of She-Hulk Attorney at Law. Now, next week we will be doing a more official episode of Access Blockbusters Pod. I think it'll probably be a D23 lead up. It'll probably be Rings of Power, probably talking about other things that have happened. I don't really know what's happened in the past few weeks. I'll have to catch up on all of that sort of stuff. But yeah, I think that will be back to the normal schedule for at least a couple more weeks, and then I'll be talking to you guys about what will be happening in October as we head into the fall and the winter seasons as well. But this video is She-Hulk Attorney at Law. So enough of that sort of backstory and exposition and context. Let's get into She-Hulk Attorney at Law episodes 1 through 3. I'm going to be going episode by episode, and there will be full spoilers ahead. So I'll be putting images in the background as I talk for the YouTube peoples. I believe this video will be only going up on YouTube. So for those of you who are watching this video, there will be images in the background just from the episodes. And yeah, let's get into it. She-Hulk episode 1. Let's talk about it. So She-Hulk is a show that I didn't have a ton of anticipation for. I thought the trailers were... I'll be honest with you. I think the first trailer for She-Hulk Attorney at Law is probably one of the worst MCU trailers I've ever seen. But again, if you guys know me, I go into any show wanting it to be the best that it can be. Any movie or show. Because I think, and I made a video about this too, I believe it's called You're Watching Movies Wrong, where I just think that we tend to deprive ourselves of enjoyment just because we want to be overly critical, or we want to nitpick, or we want to... We don't want to leave our expectations at the door as we go in and watch movies or shows, and I think that that's really a detriment because sometimes you have really bad trailers and sometimes you have really bad marketing for shows that end up being really good, but you've given up on it, prematurely. And I understand if you want to give up on a show after episode 1 or episode 2, that's totally fine. I've given up on plenty of shows after a couple episodes. I know this might be controversial. I watched the first episode of The Witcher, and I said, I don't know if I can do this anymore because it didn't get me. And that's totally fine. But again, it's just important to know what you're, I guess leaving unrealistic expectations at the door. I mean, the trailer's giving you certain expectations of maybe what the show is about. It might be more fair than other expectations, but just expecting the show to be something else that it's not is I don't think it's a good thing. And the show has always promised to be a legal comedy in the vein of a sitcom. The writers and the directors have talked ad nauseum about the fact that this is basically Ally McBeal in the MCU. And for those of you who don't know, Ally McBeal is basically just a legal sitcom. It's a comedy legal sitcom. And for those of you who haven't watched sitcoms much before, sitcoms have a very specific style. It's basically 22 minutes or so, 30 minutes total, with the commercials back when cable television was a big thing. And they would have an A storyline and a B storyline. And you would go through an episode. It would basically be a complete episode, and you would, enjoy it for what it is. You could watch standalone episodes, but you would also, for most sitcoms at least, there would be an overall season arc, at least for the more recent sitcoms in the last 20 years or so. So that's sort of what I was expecting from She-Hulk, trailers aside. And yeah, let's get into episode 1. So episode 1, right away, I heard that the majority of the scenes in episode 1 had been from a later episode, and honestly, I can't imagine it. I think that jumping right in to She-Hulk and sort of just the character doing legal things, it would have been too jarring, I think, for first episode. And I think that having the origin be in episode 1 was a very smart move. I believe Kevin Feige was the one who decided to do that. I'm not sure. You can correct me if I'm wrong in the comments down below. But I think it was a very smart move. Now, what I think is really interesting about episodes 1 and episode 2 is that they don't actually follow that sort of legal style, that sitcom style, rather. Episodes 1 and 2 are more so just normal MCU television episodes. And I think that that's fine, actually, for the first 2 episodes because, again, I've said this before, and I've said this recently when I've been ranking my favorite episodes of every MCU Disney Plus show, is that Marvel doesn't have a problem with the first 2 episodes of their shows. Generally speaking, the first 2 episodes of every single MCU Disney Plus show have been very strong. WandaVision, Falcon and Winter Soldier, Loki, Hawkeye, Moon Knight, and Ms. Marvel. The first 2 episodes have been really great because these MCU shows don't have problems setting up things, and this show is no different. I think that you get answers to questions that you've been asking for a long time, and I think that that's really, really great. For example, the question about Bruce Banner, why is he in human form in Shang-Chi? Well, you get the answer here. He has some sort of inhibitor thing. Is it sort of an easy fix? I mean, sure, but these days a lot of things about the Hulk are easy fixes, like Smart Hulk even existing in the first place and all that sort of stuff. So I'd be willing to give it a pass. Like, that's fine. And then how Jen gets her powers, obviously the Hulk blood, that makes sense to me. I'm on board. The Sicarian spacecraft was obviously a really intriguing thing back when we saw it for the first time in episode 1 without knowing what happens in episode 2, which we'll talk about in just a second. Obviously, it's still a bit of a mystery, but that was really cool to kind of see, like, oh yeah, the MCU is a big, extended universe again, and the Sicarian craft is there. And then on top of that, the whole Bruce has this lab out in Mexico, I believe it's Mexico, and he's sort of, helping Jen Walters try to control her powers. But what I loved about that is really that She-Hulk is not just Hulk, but a female Hulk. That She-Hulk is her own character. That She-Hulk is, they're able to become the Hulk because of something in their DNA and their blood, and that's fine. But Jen doesn't have an alter ego, really. Her alter ego is She-Hulk. But how Bruce truly is a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, at least before the Smart Hulk persona, and even with the Smart Hulk persona, I do believe that Bruce Banner is still battling within himself, just to maintain control of those two things put together in harmony. That there are still two distinct personalities, much like Mark and Steven in Moon Knight. There are two very distinct personalities there in the Hulk body, or the Bruce Banner body. But with Jen, it's the same person, and that's why I have a much easier time buying the fact that she is able to transform and really control her powers much more quickly than Bruce Banner. It makes sense, it's quick, it's a very, very smart solution to that problem, and I am on board with that. And I will say, I did say this in my quick community post about my initial thoughts on She-Hulk, is that the comedy is a little hit or miss in the first episode, but like I also said, with most sitcoms, if you have seen sitcoms, and I'm going to be saying this phrase a lot throughout this review, if you have seen a sitcom before, you'll know that comedy is hit or miss in sitcoms. It's just the way that it is, because there are going to be a lot of jokes, and not a lot of the jokes are going to, I'm not going to say not a lot, but there are going to be a decent sizable portion of the jokes that just don't land, and that's just the nature of having a lot of comedy in an episode. And so when I say that about half of the jokes landed and half of the jokes didn't, it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad ratio, especially knowing what I'm going for here. Now, if a film like Thor: Love and Thunder, for example, has half the jokes not working and half the jokes working, well, that's 2 hours of movie that, makes me kind of question, okay, well, why aren't the jokes working half the time? But for this, I'm more willing to be on board with that. Tatiana Maslany from episode 1 is just great. I love her a lot as Jen Walters. I like her okay as the She-Hulk persona, and I'm not sure why that is. I do think that the CGI is a little bit awkward. There are some scenes where you can just kind of tell this is not a real person, which is okay. As long as you just kind of buy into the story and buy into the fact that, this is the character, we're just going to deal with it, then that's fine. But Tatiana Maslany herself is really, really quite good. Like, Marvel's casting just knows how to cast really great actresses. Recently on the TV series, you got Iman Vellani, amazing as Kamala Khan. You have Oscar Isaac as Stephen Grant and Mark Spector and Jake Lockley. Great casting. They just know how to cast, and Jen Walters, I think, is no exception. I think Jen Walters is just a great addition to the MCU for sure. I love the fourth wall breaking as well. Like, oh, well, if you want to know how I got to be She-Hulk, you won't be able to pay attention. So here it is. That's great. And yeah, the end with Titania, she doesn't appear in the next 2 episodes, but I'm sure she's going to be coming back. I heard episode 5, I believe. So there's that. Loved episode 1. Liked it. I really loved it. It's not my favorite pilot. I think Loki probably is my favorite pilot. But again, the pilots being strong, I think that's par for the course in the MCU. So I was very curious to see where the show would go from there. So let's move on to episode 2 of She-Hulk Attorney at Law. And episode 2, again, just picks up right where episode 1 left off. And it just continues that same streak. And I love Emil Blonsky in this episode. For those of you who know, have been watching my channel for a while, you'll know that The Incredible Hulk is my least favorite MCU movie. Just something about that movie, not that it's not just the fact that it's not really the same kind of tone as the MCU, that it's, the Universal film or anything like that. It just doesn't work for me. And Emil Blonsky in that film as the Abomination is very one-dimensional. And I think that that's fine. But I think what I loved about She-Hulk is that they really fleshed out the character a lot more, but made him feel consistent with what had come before. It's not like this is a completely new kind of character. This is still Emil Blonsky 16 years later. Last Jedi haters, you're going to want to cover your ears, but I still maintain that this is kind of the same thing, a similar thing with Luke Skywalker, in that, you have the same character that I believe maintains consistency, but it's just grown, whether positively or negatively, grown to be a different kind of person now, much, much, much later. Like, I can buy the fact that Emil Blonsky 16 years later is like this now. He's learned to find some kind of inner peace. And it's the interaction that Emil Blonsky and Tatiana Maslany as Jen Walters has is really just some great writing and great acting on display. So I love that about the show. Obviously, the Hulk stuff about going off world again is interesting. It'll be very interesting to see where he pops up again, whether it is a World War Hulk, which I suspect that Disney will announce at D23 in some capacity, whether or not it's a Ragnarok kind of thing, where it's like, I don't know, Captain America New World Order turns into a World War Hulk movie or something like that. I don't know. We'll see. Because again, there's all the rights stuff with Universal that they can't really get together and share the Hulk or whatever. It's Universal has the sole distributing rights to the Hulk. So, at least to a solo movie. So we'll see how they incorporate it, but I do believe that a World War Hulk-esque story is coming. And I suspect, honestly, based on just how at peace Ruffalo seems to be playing this kind of smart Hulk character, that World War Hulk might refer to maybe his son Scar. It might be a Hulk versus Scar kind of movie. World War Hulk being, indicative of Scar as a Hulk, kind of a World Breaker Hulk kind of character, which is kind of a bummer because I do miss the World Breaker Hulk, but I think Ruffalo is just so in step with this kind of smart Hulk version that I'm not sure. We'll have to see about that. So we got that kind of aspect in there as well, and I love the legal stuff. I love the fact that she's trying to figure out a case for Emil Blonsky, that she's really working through the legal parts of it as well. And I love at the end the connections here with Shang-Chi about, oh, well, we have this case for Emil Blonsky, but wait a second. He broke out of prison. Why? And you get your answer in episode 3. So let's jump into episode 3, the most recent of the 3 She-Hulk episodes. And right away, I have to say this, because I've seen some people online saying, well, this episode isn't as good as the first 2 episodes. I don't like episode 3, which is fine, which is totally valid. And if you don't like episode 3, again, totally fine. I have to say, though, you have to understand that episode 3 is different from episodes 1 and 2. Episodes 1 and 2 felt like part of a very continuous storyline. Episode 3 is a sitcom episode. It follows every trope, or every at least broad general trope of a sitcom episode. And I think that it's important at least to give episode 3 another chance, or episode 4 if it's similar in style, because it is a sitcom episode. And sitcom episodes are different, for sure, than your typical overarching narrative, which the first 2 episodes have been. Sitcom episodes, like I said at the beginning of this video, follow a very simple structure of you have an A storyline, which is it's the most important thing going on in the episode, but you also have a B storyline, which is sort of just a side thing that's happening that maybe ties back in with the A storyline, and maybe it doesn't. And then you have little hints here and there of how this connects to the overall story, which this episode does have. And you also, it's 22 minutes. It's a very self-contained story. It's a sitcom episode, for sure. And this particular episode, like the title of the episode suggests, is The People versus Emil Blonsky, or Abomination, or whatever the title was. And that's what this episode is about. The A storyline is She-Hulk defending Emil Blonsky. The B storyline is this Runa character, the elf from New Asgard. By the way, kind of Mystique kind of vibes, right? From this elf, very interesting. And it's a very self-contained story. And again, I have to say, I know that people may not like that, but you just have to understand that this is a different kind of episode than episodes 1 and 2. It's worth pointing out that all the major sitcoms from the recent past 20 years or so follow this general pattern and general structure and outline. For example, Friends. You have an episode, a Thanksgiving episode, where the A storyline is about the Thanksgiving dinner being ruined. I don't know. I'm not making specifics up, or I'm not remembering specifics from an episode. I'm just for example, the A storyline is about the Thanksgiving dinner, and then the B storyline is about somebody losing something, and that's it. That's the episode. And yet within that episode, you have maybe an overarching story about Ross and Rachel, and that's what She-Hulk episode 3 is. So for me, if you can't tell, I really enjoyed episode 3 because once I got that this was truly the legal comedy sitcom. Unlike episodes 1 and 2, which were really setting up groundwork for what this show I think will become. Maybe episodes 3 through 7 or 8 is like this, and episode 9 is sort of wrapping it all up. I was completely on board. I love the fourth wall break where she says, "Oh, well, maybe this is a cameo. This isn't a cameo kind of show, except it kind of is, right? Like I think you're gonna have a guest of the week kind of vibe from this show, which I love. Great stuff from the MCU. I love Wong in this episode. I think his sort of deadpan, goofy kind of humor, very deadpan, it fits really well within this episode. I think that it's great. And I love, again, the interactions between her and Emil Blonsky. I think that's great. I'd be very curious with all the rumors about him being part of the Thunderbolts, is that whether or not, obviously we'll see him again probably, but whether or not, how his turning into the Abomination is going to play into that. It remains to be seen. I'm very curious to see about that. I wonder what's going to happen to Emil Blonsky. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see him again, in this series. Just like the Hulk, I think that Titania is going to be the focus of the show after episode 4, because I think episode 4 will probably be Daredevil, a lot of Daredevil and She-Hulk, which is going to be great. And I'm super excited about that. But I think the case, like the whole legal aspect of that case, was really great. The way that she was defending the client, like a legal comedy, right? Legal is part of that as well. And I really, really enjoyed that as well. I will say that the B storyline is, was not, like, it's not my favorite thing, but it's enjoyable for a B storyline. Like my expectations of what a B storyline in a sitcom is, I think that is really, it worked. It's fine. It's sort of funny. It's goofy. The Megan Thee Stallion stuff, like, it's not my favorite stuff in the MCU ever, but it's a sitcom. Like, not all B storylines have to be of importance of the world needs to be saved. And that's what I love about this show, is that the world doesn't need to be saved. It's a lawyer, it's a legal sitcom, it's legal comedy, and that's what I really loved about this episode. And the post-credit scene is just goofy. For those of you who have watched recent sitcoms, you'll know that the episode will end and then there will be a tag usually at the end. And that's what these post-credit scenes are. They're tags for the show. Usually what sitcoms will do, like The Office, is that the tag will play before the credits, but in this case the tags are playing in the middle of the credits. And that's totally what they are. Don't expect, like, I don't know, Deadpool to show up maybe in the post-credit. I mean, he might, but I wouldn't put money on it anymore. I don't think that kind of thing is really what the post-credit scenes are for at this point in time. What else happens in episode 3? I mean, that's, I love the aspect of the news, like what will the media and the general public say about a She-Hulk kind of figure. I think that stuff is great. The Emil Blonsky turning into the Abomination scene was really funny. I think that was really great. The mugging scene at the end, it's kind of gives off Tracksuit Mafia kind of vibes from Hawkeye, which is fine. It's, just a goofy bunch of goons, I guess. Who they're working for, I don't know. Maybe it's Kingpin, maybe. Because maybe why does Daredevil show up, in episode 4, which I'm going to assume he does. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, those are my thoughts on the first 3 episodes of She-Hulk. I'm treating this very much like a legal sitcom, which is a bummer that it's only 9 episodes, because of all the shows, I love Daredevil. But of all the shows, I feel like this one could have benefited the most from 18 episodes which is sort of the general length of a sitcom season, sort of 18 to 22 episodes. But again, maybe season 2 will have many more episodes where it's just, a different thing every week, and that'll be fun to see. For sure. I'm really enjoying the show. Didn't like the trailers a lot, but again, very much enjoying myself with this show. So what do you guys think of episodes 1 through 3 of She-Hulk Attorney at Law? Let me know in the comments down below. Are you looking forward to Daredevil? Are you looking forward to episode 4? Let me know in the comments down below. If you haven't subscribed to the Access Blockbusters YouTube channel, please make sure to do so for more of this kind of content. Thank you guys so much for watching. Really appreciate you guys, and looking forward to seeing what comes next as we look forward to next week with D23 as well. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.